welcome to Read This Author's Corner and the Harlem Book Fair. I am your host, Alice James, and I'm here with my co-host, Max Rodriguez, founder of the Harlem Book Fair. And our very special guest today is Clarence Haynes, one of the authors of Nubia, The Awakening. Welcome, Clarence.
Alice, thank you. Max, it's great to see you. It's great to see you both, and thank you so much for the welcome. An honor to be here.
Excellent. Clarence, how we're going to start this is, one, I would love for you to tell us a little bit about your background and what is your passion for writing, and then give the audience a brief summary.
Will do. I have worked for many years as a publishing professional. Like my great literary hero, Toni Morrison, I actually started off as a book editor. I've worked in different editorial capacities at divisions of Penguin Random House, Amazon Publishing, and Hachette Book Group, whether as an in-house employee or a freelancer. I've worked in different genres, though primarily they've been science fiction fantasy, which is, anyone who knows me knows that's my great love, mysteries, thrillers, some general fiction, and then what I would call progressive nonfiction. During the last year and a half or so, I've been honored to enter the world of being a writer and author myself. And so my work as an editor certainly has helped to inform my approach to being a writer. In early 2022, my first book came out, The Legacy of Jim Crow, which is a short nonfiction work for middle graders and high schoolers, which chronicles the existence of Jim Crow laws in the United States and how these laws have impacted how we live today. Then in November, the big book came out, which I co-wrote with the great actor-producer Omar Epps, called Nubia, The Awakening. It's an Afrofuturist, YA Afrofuturist novel set in 2098 in a New York that's radically changed because of the climate crisis. In this future New York, society has been divided. Those who are rich live in a super technologically advanced part of the city called the Up High. Those who have more modest means, they live in the lower portions of the city. And the book follows a group of refugees who are known as Nubians. They're a group who hailed from an island, mysterious island, off the west coast of Africa, who, because of xenophobia, racism, class divisions, have been forced to live in a very dangerous part of the city in lower Manhattan in terms of what we would know as our current financial district. In the future, it's a barren place that's really only protected by a very weak seawall. We follow three teenagers, Uzochi and Lencho, who are cousins, and Zuberi, and what's been going on for them as they're in school. And they start to notice that strange things are happening. They're actually awakening to gifts that they didn't know that they had. That's their actual birthright as Nubians. And so the book doesn't just deal with sort of fantasy sci-fi elements of what I just described. It deals a lot with what these kids would be going through, what their reality would be, what their challenges they would face at school, the challenges they face at home, and also parental legacy is a huge theme. That's something that was really important to Omar, that he wanted to explore as an author, and as well, particularly the presence or absence of fathers. That's a huge theme in the book. So,
wow, there's a lot to unpack there. Max, I'll turn that over to you. Is
this new genre of science fiction or speculative fiction? Is this social science fiction / social justice, speculative? What is this?
Well, it's funny you say that. I think some people are drawn. I don't know if there is a technical term. What you're implying, Max, is correct, that there's something about this particular book that I'm realizing a lot of people are being drawn to who don't even necessarily consider themselves sci-fi fantasy or speculative fiction people, but because there's sort of such a overt social justice or the element, or really deals with contemporary socio-political concerns, they're like, oh, I'm really taking to this. It's been course adopted actually already by several high school classes via this program behind the book. And I think that was the reason why they really were interested in it, because they felt like the book deals with themes that kids are going through today. So for instance, the book deals with a gang that deals drugs and the politics around that, with the gang leader having certain ethics around that, and knowing that what they're doing isn't quite right, but being forced to do so because they don't have other options in order to survive. There are also issues of emotional and physical abuse at home, how one character deals with that in not such great ways, but also looking at someone who might be going through that, looking at that in a really realistic, unflinching way. And that's something I was very proud of, and that Omar was very proud of as well. Both of us were, we're both New Yorkers from a certain period of time. So both of us, we don't like to BS, and we're like, all right, this is what this would look like, this is what this would feel like, and we don't want our readers to feel like we're taking their intelligence and life experience for granted. So
that's very good. So there's so many things to ask you about this work. So I'll just pick one. So do futurist writers have a responsibility to project us into the future and into a better quality of life? Or are they still grappling with the same issues? Does tomorrow look like today in the future?
I think it depends on the writer. I'm always hesitant to say anything that's too prescriptive. I do like to think as Black folks, as writers of color, I do think there's a certain level of responsibility that we have in terms of our approach to the work. But whether the future needs to be a reflection of what we're going through today, most people would say most future-oriented books are in fact take on what we're experiencing now. That they're really just using the future as a lens through which to grapple with contemporary issues. But I also think you can use futurist works in order to present what the world could be, and there's power in that as well. Of course, in any book, you're going to need to have some sort of central conflict. So anything that's too much of a utopia will probably be kind of flat for a reader. But I do think there's, I was a comic book person growing up, and one of my favorite titles was a futuristic superhero series. And it did present the future in many ways as this gleaming, beautiful place. And I think there's power in that to think about what our possibilities could be if we get things right. So.
It's interesting because as you're speaking, I know why I was attracted to wanting to speak to you is because as much as I might not be into that whole futuristic aspect of things, when I heard you on the webinar and you were giving the description of the book and the elevated New York and it was actually things that I could picture. And the fact that even if we do bring this world to a place of destruction, there is still a possibility to rebuild from that. And I thought that was really interesting. And as Max was talking about Afro Next, I really thought about some of the things that I heard you speak of in the webinar of the visions that you have in the book. So I would love if you can share, not too detailed, but kind of give us a picture of what this futuristic New York looks like.
Sure, I will give little kernels of information.
A little kernel, just a little
so
kernel.
Actually, I can. So this is the book. I should show this for the whoever knows the cover. I can. So we came up with a map of what future New York looks like. And we also have a timeline that breaks down like for about what would that be, almost 40 years, 40-year breakdown of sort of how the city would have changed. So future New York, there are seawalls interspersed along the coastlines of Manhattan and Brooklyn and Queens, anywhere basically where there's covered by water, correct? The seawalls will exist. We made sort of the climate change situation a bit more extreme in the book because I believe contemporary science says that seawalls will be put in place to prevent flooding due to storm surges, where the seawalls in this book operate a little bit differently, which, you know, I don't want to give away one of the big climactic moments of the book. Also, people eat insects. That's a thing. Eating insects is considered New York street food at this point. There are the New York City subway system was destroyed because it was flooded. So there's a hover vehicle system that's in place, even in the lower part of the city. In the upper part of the city, it's almost like the cars are almost like mini helicopters or airplanes. Like, whereas the lower part of the city, they rely on hover buses, hover vans, hover cars. What else? The school that Izochi is at, you can see that technology is has advanced a bit in terms of there are droids, there are robots that permeate society, and some Izochi school has some technological advancements, but it's meant to be positioned in a way where it shows that it's still, for this time, old technology, not up to par. Also, one huge thing is people will notice people in the lower cities still are using cell phones. Their manner of communication is considered very archaic and stuck compared to people who live in the up high. People in the up high have cybernetic implants, and so their bodies contain the technology that they need to make a phone call, to research stuff, to connect with other people, to download information that can do so in their bodies. And also holograms are a huge thing. So everything is a holo, is holotech this, holo platform this, holo image this. So those are some of the changes.
That's very good. That's very good. So, books always reflect, right? They're a reflection of society in its moment. And I'm just wondering, I know your work, right? I know your work as an editor in publishing, I love that you have chosen, sci-fi, speculative fiction as your voice. That's really good. Where does this idea of this, futuristic, social issue, sci-fi, novel play in the trajectory of science, Black science fiction, of where we show up in science fiction? I'm thinking of like Octavia Butler and Sam Delaney, that whole range, even in Star Trek and Arthur C. Clarke, Childhood's End, where the last person standing was a Black man, a rarity indeed. And then we have Wakanda, and now we have, so science fiction, our representation within speculative fiction has evolved, has changed, I think, for the better. And it's to the point where we can have us looking at social issues in a science fiction framework, in a futuristic framework. I think that's amazing, and certainly it's about time. What do you think?
I agree. I think one of the things, I completely agree with everything you said, and I think where we were at when I was a child, if someone were to tell me some of what would be coming down the pipeline, I would have just whispered, if I could send my contemporary self back to my childhood self and whisper as a spirit, just wait till you see what's coming. The fact that the big movie of this weekend is going to be Across the Spider-Verse, is going to be this Afro-Latino Spider-Man character who's going to be the figurehead for what's going to be, I'm pretty sure, a major animated blockbuster, international blockbuster. And the fact that these type of properties not only just exist, but are seen as extremely commercially viable. And there's a sense that it's important. There's a sense that, and who we are needs to be front and center. It shouldn't be downplayed. It shouldn't be quote unquote colorblind or any of that stuff, I think is phenomenal. I think at the same time, I still think there's work to be done. You know, one of the very interesting and somewhat sad things is I don't think there are I could be wrong, but there are not technically tons of young adult Afrofuturist books on the market. Also, what's there's almost nothing is the fact that Omar and I are Black males writing this, and that the book has a young Black male protagonist. It's it's still very rare. It's not in a Afrofuturist context. So there's, and it shouldn't be, you know? And so there's still just more work to be done and more possibilities to explore, more types of voices to put out there, more intersections to present. That's what I think. So
okay, let's get back to the book for a moment, because you know the truth be told, you know, in saying everything, Alice, her background is in fashion. And the only reason we brought you on is because if you're talking about a book about the future, we want to know what's everybody wearing. I want to know what I need to get ready for.
It depends. We got into that a little bit. So the people in the up high, they can we give little glimpses of what they wear. So for instance, there's a glimpse of someone who his shirt literally has like a starlight pattern that's moving. And so one of the Nubians thinks like, oh my God, he's awakened to his gift. And he's like, no, that's just his shirt. There's and one of the main supporting characters, who's a reader favorite, her name is Brianna, and she's meant to be like walking joy. And she is her fashion, I would say, is sort of like Black girl urban exquisiteness, just with little hints of the future. But what she wears, because even she's into like coloring her hair, whatever, and I see that now. So I wouldn't even say she's radically the fashion of the future that we presented for a character like her is radically different from what we would see now. Guys wear tunics. That's a big thing. You know, in terms of it, button down stuff isn't quite so hot. And then there's also more fluidity. It doesn't really, there's less of a guys wear this, girls wear this, you know. So
I need you to write in some cargo shorts so I don't have to throw mine away.
No, there we go.
Cargo shorts. Oh man.
But I honestly do believe that the fashion is moving to non-gender descript fashion.
I agree.
In the future, we're seeing it now, and it's funny because what was is now again, and because if you look in the back where they used to wear between the kilts and the Roman skirts and the Egyptian loincloth, like men wore skirts.
It's hinted at, because one of the things that, you know, during the writing process, you know, in earlier drafts, there was a little bit more about fashion, and then we had to cut it just in terms of keeping the story at a certain pace. But that like fluidity, we certainly hint at, from everything from just passing figures to some of the so the city, a huge difference in this New York, you know, America has changed. This New York is now part of something called Tri-State East, and the Tri-State East is run by a militia. The big villain is a tycoon who also has control of the militia that serves as Tri-State East type of police force. And so the way we presented them, they're certainly in military regalia, but you have to pay really close attention sometimes to the gender identity of each of the person, because it's just not. Like,
Nondescript, yes.
It's not going to be a thing. Like, it could be woman, man, it could be someone who's gender non-binary, like, and we give little hints with the pronouns we use. So yeah. Also, one huge fashion thing is that the villain of the book, even though I maybe shouldn't say he's the villain, but let's just say he's the ominous figure in the book, Crazen, St. John. He wears caftans. He wears like African-inspired caftans, and he's and people don't realize he's white. And there's a purpose, and he likes to walk around barefoot. We did this before. I'm hearing now about this barefoot summer thing happening, and we wrote this before. So I was like, that's so interesting. And he is definitely a character who's using fashion in a certain way, in a way that's meant to imply it's exploitative, it's appropriating certain cultures for his own use, to be seen as cool. So
who am I gonna want to see in the sequel?
Who are you gonna want to see in the sequel, like in terms of the characters?
That's right.
Pay attention. So the book is told from 4 perspectives: 3 Nubians, and then a person who she is the daughter of Crazen, Sandra. She's the 4th perspective. She's the wild card. She's the person who everyone, when they read her, they're like, what's her deal? And by the end of this book, and the book ends on somewhat of a cliffhanger, they're like, that's her deal? Pay attention to her in book 2 as well.
Okay.
She's our character that people get up in their feelings about.
When is book 2 look?
Book 2 will be out on September 26th. So we worked hard on this. Let's not keep readers waiting. It'll
September 26th of this year.
This year.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, we like last all of winter last year was no joke in terms of getting it done. Omar, I was living in Europe at the time, and Omar and I would be on the phone because the time difference, so it'd be like 3 o'clock in the morning. And Omar and I would be on the phone. Okay, I really think you need to. All right, so why don't we do
in the Harlem Book Fair as a part of our Afro Next program?
I don't know if his book kind of fits. I
mean, just for the thought process, what are maybe 2 things that you feel from your book that you can actually see really manifesting in society somewhere in the near future?
So we are going to have seawalls. We are going to have the way that they're presented in the book is, as I said before, it's presented in a sort of we utilize the seawalls in a certain way to have a particular type of dramatic effect. But in reality, how they will be placed and used will be different. But there will be seawalls in New York in the future.
There will indeed be seawalls. I read an article recently on Clarence where it says that that New York City is sort of, from the weight of it, is sort of falling, sinking, lowering down. Yeah. So in fact, there will be some sort of levees or walls to protect.
There most definitely will.
And that was your idea.
I can't say take responsibility, but I did do the research. I think it's already happening. But I do think New York, for at least for a while, will be a place where there's some real icky class divisions, and that people are, I'm a native New Yorker who grew up in the 70s and 80s here. And so I am not used to people being seen as somebody because of their wealth and their signifiers of wealth and lifestyle, and it's not my cup of tea. But I do think that that's going to be a good entrenched part of New York for a while, at least. So, it
is the very essence of what the Bay Area is very classes.
And I just didn't grow up with that. I grew up with such a different relationship to the city and people, different types of people in the city. So my relationship is much more around the eclecticism of New York and really immigrant backgrounds, as my family's from Panama. So for me, I just feel kinship to everyone who's come here from different immigrant backgrounds to try to cultivate a better life for themselves. I deeply connect to that. So so I think the fact that class division is such a huge part of the book, I think that's going to stick around in New York. As I said, at least for a while, perhaps not forever, but
class is certainly something new to humanity. I don't think so. Okay, so so what I'm hearing is that do we have sort of you have Up High, right? Do we have kind of a Jack and the Beanstalk kind of scenario here, where one of the protagonists are finding their way?
You know books, Max. The term, there's a term that's used for people who want to live up high, who are born in the lower city. It's called ascension. And so that's a big deal for like, oh, maybe you'll ascend, maybe you'll ascend. And so our protagonist is Uzochi, who is an academic superstar. His dream is that he's going to earn a scholarship and be able to ascend to the up high. And one of the characters, because of their awakening to their gifts, they get an opportunity to ascend via their gifts. And this idea of ascension is a constant theme through both books. So exactly as you said, because by book 2, all characters, all of the 3 main Nubians we focus on will have gone up high, but in different ways for different reasons. And then again, there's that issue of how you're living in the lower city, and then you see how these people are living, and then you're like, the injustice of it all, like, we're eating bugs and have all sorts of
it sounds like
structural damage, and these people are like living like gods, so
it sounds like a very exciting book.
It does, it really does. As we are as we're ready to wrap up here, can you please share what is the takeaway, the essential takeaway that you feel that you would like the readers to?
Great question, Alice. I don't have a set answer for that, but I know what's important for me with most of what I do is for people to think about who they are. And so I hope that, particularly for, young adult books, or particularly for the younger readers, but really readers of any age, but there's an opportunity that we have a diverse cast. We have different types of people, for an opportunity for maybe for you to sit with what your experience is and see if it can be reflected. See if any of the characters reflect that experience back to you, and what does it tell you about yourself?
Very good. Very good. Max?
No, I'm good. It sounds like fun. Did you say Clarence was going to join us at the Harlem Book Fair?
I did. Clarence has agreed to be a part of our Afro Next program. We are going to shine a light on what it would look like to, I think you like to say, Max, the new evolution of cool. What does it look and
the rebirth of cool? And I will bring my car shorts.
And we will not allow you into the
Yeah, I was gonna say, well.
Thank you for watching Read This, Author's Corner. I am your host, Alice James, and I'd like to thank Max Rodriguez, my co-host, and Clarence Haynes, the author of Nubia, The Awakening, and Nubia, The Reckoning. Go out and pick up a copy. Until next time.